In Matthew 7:15-17, the King James Version warns against false prophets, emphasizing that they can be identified by their actions or fruits. Specifically, they appear harmless like sheep on the outside, but are inwardly harmful like ravenous wolves. The passage uses the metaphor of trees and fruit, stating that good trees produce good fruit, while bad trees produce bad fruit. Therefore, one should evaluate individuals based on their actions, not just their outward appearance or claims. You know that saying you can judge a tree by its fruits. Well, there's deep wisdom there, especially when it comes to people who claim to be spiritual leaders. In Matthew chapter 7, Jesus warned us about false prophets, those who come in sheep's clothing but are actually wolves inside. How do you spot them? Look at what they produce in people's lives. If someone demands blind loyalty, tries to isolate you from loved ones, or makes you doubt your own judgment, those are some pretty rotten fruits. True spiritual guidance brings peace, wisdom, and stronger connections with others, not fear and isolation. So remember, when someone claims to have all the answers, take a step back and look at the fruits of their leadership. Are they building people up or tearing relationships apart? The answer tells you everything you need to know. Verse 15, beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Verse 16, ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Verse 17, even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. In essence, Jesus is cautioning his followers to be discerning and to judge people not by their outward appearance or claims, but by the evidence of their character and actions. According to biblical scholars, by their fruits we need to be on the lookout for those who would lead people away from God by pretending that they are leading them to God. We have seen this happen several times in very public and tragic ways, but it can happen in less public ways as well. The world was horrified when they learned of the mass suicide of over 900 people, one-third of them minors in Guyana in 1978, and again of the destruction of the compound in Waco, Texas, where over 70 people died. Both of these tragedies occurred because the leaders of the cult claimed to either be a god or be God's messenger or Messiah. There have been many other cults operating with less destructive results. Preying on loners or immigrants, the leaders promise security here and eternal life if only you follow them. They don't say that you are following God, but you are following them because they are the only ones who know the way. By their fruits you will know them. These people ask blind obedience, work to separate people from their families and friends, and often demand a certain percentage of income. This doesn't sound like Jesus to me. Paul never demanded obedience to himself. In fact, he said just the opposite to the Corinthians. John the Baptist said that he wasn't the one and pointed to Jesus. We have been warned by Jesus to look at those who claim to be prophets carefully and judge by their fruits. If they are more interested in leading us to themselves instead of to Jesus, we must beware. What did Jesus mean when he said, do not cast your pearls before swine, your pearls before swine? It's easy to focus on the derogatory imagery of dogs and pigs and miss the real point. which is not meant as an insult. The message is about wasting things of value on those who not only won't appreciate them, but might even be angered by the offer. What did Jesus mean when he said foxes have holes and birds have nests? When Jesus said foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head, he was emphasizing the sacrifices and hardships involved in following him. He was pointing out that while even wild animals have lairs and nests for shelter, he, the Son of Man, had a life of constant travel and homelessness. This was a direct response to a man who expressed a desire to follow Jesus, but wanted to first attend to earthly duties, highlighting that following Jesus required a willingness to embrace a life of discipleship, which could involve significant personal sacrifice and a lack of material possessions. Here's a more detailed breakdown. Foxes and birds as a contrast. Jesus used the imagery of foxes and birds to illustrate the contrast between the settled lives of animals and his own itinerant ministry. Foxes and birds, even in their wild state, had designated places of rest, homelessness, and discipleship. Jesus' statement highlights his own lack of a permanent home and the itinerant nature of his ministry. This was a deliberate choice, not a lack of resources, but a reflection of his focus on spiritual work rather than material comforts.